welcome to Much More on Medicine. I'm your host, Katharine Nohr. The world could sure use some happiness now. That's why today's episode is Happiness is the Best Medicine. Today, I'm pleased to be talking with Edwin Edebiri, the Chief Happiness Officer. He has an amazing story to tell us. Welcome, Edwin.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, I think the big question is, how did you become the Chief Happiness Officer?
It's almost like that's where it starts. It comes from just one day coming out of meditation and deciding that you want to go out on the street and start talking to people about happiness. And so it wasn't like anything prepared me for that, but it was back in 2009. It was at the height of the recession. We know things were very tough for a lot of people at that time. And I do a lot of meditation. And one day I felt really happy. I was just more happy than my usual self. And I couldn't really place it in the beginning, but I decided, okay, let me just go out and just talk to somebody about happiness, shift their mind from all the negativity into something positive. And so that's what I did. And first person I talked to, they look at me weird because nobody ever asked them on the street, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you right now? And they gave me a number, we talked about it, and then it just started to build into that. And eventually I turned it to some form of interview because I wanted to collect data. And so one day I was speaking at an event in Marysville, it's part of California, and there was a young man that was in the audience, and he started listening to me talk, and it's like, man, you talk about happiness, you must be the head honcho of happiness, And and so I'm like, head honcho? I mean, that didn't quite sound right, But he said, yeah, you own the company, you run the company, it's all about happiness. I said, oh, you mean like chief executive? He said, oh yeah, something like that. So I said, oh, okay, what if it's chief happiness? And he said, oh yeah, that would be cool too. So that's how I became chief happiness officer.
Oh, okay, well, that's a great title. And I understand that the reason why I met you was because I saw your TED Talk.
Yes.
And you have a very interesting story about how this came about. And can you share that with us?
Absolutely. So after that initial day of the meditation and going out, I start to realize that when I stop people and I ask them about happiness, number one, they were very open. And it wasn't like they're talking to a stranger. So they were just comfortable, maybe because at that time too, anything about happiness, they were just happy to talk about it. And so I started doing that. And one day I was in Jack London Square in Oakland. And this is Oakland, California. And Jack London Square is beautiful. It's almost like the kind of background that you have right now. And so there was a young man that was coming towards me. And by this time, I have done this over 500 times. So I said, hey, can I ask you a quick question? And he said, no. I was like, uh-oh, what's going on now, So I said, I will make it really quick. And he said, not really. I said, come on, what is going on? It's a beautiful day. So he realized I wasn't going to let him go that easy. So he said, okay, whatever it is, just go ahead and ask it. So I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you right now? Not tomorrow, not yesterday. And it gave me the lowest number I've ever heard from anybody. So I was kind of shocked. Why would anybody rate themselves this low? It's a beautiful day. So I said, hey, can I share a quick story with you? And he said, no. I said, here we go again, So I had to work for every response that I got from him. And so finally, he said, okay, whatever, just share it because I really got to go. I said, okay. So first thing that came from my mouth, I just started sharing. And I realized towards the end of that first story, it was a little bit calm. So I said, hey, can I share one more story? And he didn't say yes or no. So I'm like, wow, I assumed it for a yes. So I shared one more, then two more, then three more. I was on a roll. I mean, like 9 stories, maybe 30 minutes later, and the little voice was telling me, okay, I think you should slow down now. You need to stop while the going is good. And so I reached out to shake his hand, and he grabbed my hand so tight. I was like, what have I got myself into now, And so he said, what is your name? And I said, well, as a general rule, I don't give my name. And I make the decision very early on because I didn't want people thinking, okay, this guy is just talking about happiness, but he's going to try to come and sell us something, you know? So I said, I'm not going to give my name. I'm not going to ask for your name. And if we are supposed to meet again, we'll meet again. So he looked at me straight in my eye. He said, not this time, you know? He said, I didn't want to talk to you at first. You've kept me here for like almost 30 minutes. The least you can do is give me your name. So I thought it was fair. Plus, I needed my hand back, okay? So I gave him my name and he asked for the spelling. I spelled it for him and he released my hand and I went my way. Now, to me, it wasn't any different than what I've done. It was just a little bit longer. And so I went my way. So the next day, I got a call from this young man and he said, do you remember me? And I said, of course, I remember his voice very clearly. And I said, yes, I do. I remember you from Jack London Square. And he said, yeah. I said, but what I don't remember is giving you my number. And he said, yeah, I Google you. I said, okay. So now it kind of hit me. That's why I was asking for the spelling of my last name, because there's no way he would have been able to track me without that. And so then he break the news that he was calling to thank me. I'm like, why are you calling to thank me? I mean, I'm the one that held you hostage. It's not making any sense. And he said, yes, he understand that. He said, but when I stopped him, he was on his way to commit suicide. And that's when I was shocked. I was like, whoa, what happened? You know? And he said, when I met him, he scored that low because he was in so much pain and he just wanted to end it, everything. I said, wow. I said, what happened? He said, well, the stories you shared, they make sense. You know, not all of them I could understand because of your accent, but the ones I understood make sense. So I told him, no, it wasn't my accent. You were rushing me, you know, so I was trying to cover as much ground. And he said, yeah, he said they did. He said, I went back home and the suicide note I left for my parents, I flipped it and I started writing down the things I was thankful about and based on the stories you were sharing with me. And I said, wow. And he said that those things were there. They were there, but he suppressed them because he was in so much pain. And I said, well, you need to go see a counselor. And he said, yeah, I've been seeing a counselor for 2 years and nothing was working. And he just wanted to end it. So I said, but now you're in a different frame of mind. You need to go see a different counselor. And he said, yeah. I said, are you a counselor? And I said, no. And he said, thank you. And he hung up. And that day changed my life. I mean, I think that is when I actually went ahead to start the I Am Happy project that is now in 64 cities in 19 countries and over 70,000 individuals involved.
Okay, so tell us about the Happiness Project. What do you do with that?
So there's two aspects of it. There is the I Am Happy project, which is just connecting individuals to focus on volunteering in their community. Because I came across a study that shows that aside from gratitude, which is the number one way to increase your happiness, volunteering is a very close second. And most people are just focused on themselves. And so if you can be of service to others, even if you are sick, even if you are in pain, the moment you can remove the focus from you and put it on helping other people, it tends to alleviate some of that. It tends to reduce that. So I decided to create a program where I actually pay people to go out and volunteer. It's crazy and it's a long story, okay? I call them the happiness ambassadors, okay?
Okay.
And so because every time I talk to people about volunteering, they always tell me, oh, I don't have the time. I know it's a great thing, but I just don't have the time. I'm trying to make ends meet. So I said, well, what if I pay you for a couple hours? Would you volunteer for a couple hours, you know? And they say, of course, you know? So that's how I started the Happiness Ambassador program. But the whole I Am Happy project was to really encourage people to volunteer on a voluntary basis to be of service in their community. And then that I started 2009, and we've been on now for over 10 years. But then the Happy Neighborhood Project was focused on business. Because what I realized is that a lot of people just go out trying to make the big money and try to make stuff, but they leave happiness behind in the process. So I said, okay, what if we can create a platform that allow people to really take happiness seriously and build on the foundation of happiness? So that's what the Happy Neighborhood Project becomes. And the members take pledges to provide great customer service, but they also pledge to encourage a positive work environment. And then we make the consumer also take a pledge. So if they come to use our member, there are no public shaming. So it takes two to tango. So we don't accept reviews on our website, and we don't encourage our members to beg for reviews, and we just encourage feedback instead. So if there's a dispute, we have the happy case managers that kind of reach out to the consumer that is not happy and find out what they need to be done, and then we communicate it with the member. And so by the time we are done, there's this dialogue that creates a win-win for everybody.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it was really interesting leading up to this. I went to a Barnes and Noble and I happened upon a section in the books that almost all the books were about happiness. So I realized when I looked at that, I couldn't believe there were so many happiness books.
Yes.
And it occurs to me that there's a huge market for happiness.
That is correct. Very correct. Now here is the strange part though. When I hosted the Global Happiness Summit in 2010, there wasn't that many books like that out there,
Oh, okay.
Okay, and to a certain extent, I was like a lone wolf. Now, don't get me wrong, there were a lot of people who were already doing something, trying to get something going in terms of focus. But I still remember trying to look for speakers that were focused on happiness. That's all they did, and they do, some people would do motivational speaking and all of this kind of stuff, but I wanted folks really focus on it. And so the Global Happiness Summit became a kickoff, and we are approaching a 10-year anniversary of that in October of this year. But he also actually led to a movement that collaborated with other movements around the world. And by 2012, the United Nations actually passed a resolution making March 20th International Day of Happiness.
Oh.
And so we have celebrated it every year since then. But I also realized it's created a lot of awareness for people who realize, hey, if we focus on happiness, maybe we can actually generate it to money making or monetize it or something. And so you now see a lot of culture of happiness in the workplace, creeping up. And now, of course, we are seeing more company having the chief happiness officer, which is cool by me, and so it's just more people, the better. Yeah.
So you're just the first chief happiness officer then.
That I know of,
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, now what is the day, what's the National or International Happiness Day?
So in 2012, the UN, passed a resolution making March 20th the International Day of Happiness. And again, based on record, it was actually the first, maybe the only resolution that was agreed on by all nations, okay? And the whole purpose was to focus on happiness, mindfulness. And every year, the United Nations come up with a new theme that's going to be the focus for the year. And so we try to celebrate that. And this year, of course, we have to celebrate it via Zoom,
Sure.
because of all the shelter at home. But yes, we have celebrated it every year since 2014.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. So did you plan something different than a Zoom event for 2020?
Well, we are still monitoring things. So March 20th, we actually had a public event. We were planning for 250 to 300 people. We had the location, we had the DJ, we had the MC, we had everything. And of course, they started to shut down things. First it was you couldn't have events with over 50 people. Then it became you couldn't have event with it was 150 in California. Then it became 50, then it became 20, I think it became 10, then we realized the event is not going to happen. So then we brought it online. But we are actually also planning for a much bigger event. It may actually still be on Zoom, but it's going to be a global event that we are targeting around October to celebrate the 10th year anniversary of the Global Happiness Summit.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to take a short break. I'm Katharine Nohr. This is Much More on Medicine on the ThinkTech live streaming network series. We're talking with Edebiri about happiness is the best medicine. We're back. We're live. I'm Katharine Nohr. We're talking with Edwin Edebiri about happiness is the best medicine. Edwin, so I know that with COVID and all of these other challenges that we're having in the world, including murder hornets, I wonder if you can give us some tips to bring happiness into our own lives during this challenging time.
Yeah, definitely. I think by far the way to really be in control of your happiness is to gradually understand and practice that we have to move from happiness as a pure emotion to happiness as a skill. Now, don't get me wrong. Happiness is an emotion that's been documented over 100 years, 400 years, and everything like that. But if we just leave it as pure emotion, then we go through emotional roller coaster, okay? And we all know that's very stressful. It's the up and downs that we go through. So one of the things that I'm pioneering is the concept of saying, hey, wait a second now. Happiness is going to be around with us. It's been around forever. Let's learn it a little bit more, and let's identify some skill sets that we can practice ahead of time. Not during the time you are in situation. I have some time, I do a session on depression and happiness, and people say, wait a second, Edwin, you're supposed to be the chief happiness officer. Why are you talking about depression? I say, well, depression is part of life. You know, there's 17 million people in the US that are depressed. You know, that those are even the ones that are certified depression. There's more that are depressed that don't even know they are depressed, okay? So you don't want, you know, the first thing that I want to share that is very critical as far as takeaway, and I want to qualify it too, is that happiness is a choice, okay? It is a very, very simple choice, but it's a choice that we have to make on a daily basis. You cannot make it in advance. You can't say, okay, I'm going to be happy for the rest of the year or the rest of the month. No, it doesn't happen like that. You have to wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm going to be happy today, you know? And then you hope that you're happy throughout the day, okay? But having said that, when I say happiness is a choice, it's when things are going good that you make that choice. Because if you are depressed and you go to a person that's depressed and you tell that person, hey, you know, get off it, happiness is a choice, you might as well take a knife and shoot it right into their chest, okay? Because they cannot process happiness as a choice at that time, and you are not doing them any service, okay? So what I tell people is during the good times, that's when you exercise your happiness muscles, okay? You know, that's when you practice some of these skills that I'm going to share with you right now. And then when things like COVID comes around, then you can know that, okay, I can flex my muscle, you know, and you can stay happy no matter what, okay? So by far the biggest, when you start to make up your mind that happiness is a choice, you have to look at gratitude, okay? And there's a lot of studies that have been documented about gratitude. I still remember as a little kid growing up in Nigeria, and my grandma, you know, she used to tell me, she said, when you express gratitude, it actually allows more things to come your way that you are going to be grateful about. Now, I was like 7 years old, way back then. And of course, you fast forward to now and they say, oh, that's the law of attraction, okay? Or they give it all kind of names. Well, as a 7-year-old, I didn't have a name for that, and my grandma did not have a name for it. She just know that if you are thankful, if you express gratitude on a consistency basis, you're going to attract more stuff, more events in your life. So I start to process that as I start to study happiness, and I realize, wait a second, that is so simple. Now, here is the trick. People think you only are grateful or express gratitude when everything is going well. And that is not true, because life is going to move up and down. You need to try to level it. So what I learned is that when things are not going well, and you are already used to expressing gratitude, and you've practiced it over time, and again, very quickly, practice does not make perfect, okay? Practice makes improvement, all right? So if you are committing to practicing, then when life throws you curveballs, which always going to happen, okay, you are able to still find things inside that curveball that you are still grateful about, because gratitude becomes your default position. And then people are going to start to say you are crazy. You know, for example, you know, you get a traffic ticket, and then you already used to being grateful, right? So in your mind, it's like, okay, what is this traffic ticket can I be thankful for? And all of a sudden you say, wait a second, maybe this police officer stopped me. Otherwise, I could have gone to hit somebody else, or I could have gone to hit myself. And I'm like, whoa, I am so grateful for that, because that did not happen. And in the process, the pain of the ticket is very minimal because the gratitude overpower it. Now, people might say, oh, that's very trivial stuff. No, even the death of a loved one, you know, all of a sudden you think, okay, what can I be thankful for in the death of a loved one? And you realize, wait a second, this person is not in pain anymore. Wow, that's something I should be thankful for. They're not in pain anymore. You know, so once you're used to expressing gratitude during the good times, you start to be able to do it in a default situation. And here is something, you know, before the society tells us how to behave, because, you know, you're not supposed to be happy when bad things happen to you. And if you are, maybe something is wrong with you. That's a bunch of BS. Because what I have found out over 10 years of focusing on studying happiness is when bad things happen to you, if you can somehow manage to be happy inside of that, now you have the strength, you have the focus, you have the resilience, you have all the benefit that comes with happiness that you can use to deal with that situation. And I always ask people, I said, if you are facing a tough time and you have two options, one is you are unhappy with that tough time, and the second one is you are happy with the tough time. Which one is going to help you get out of the tough time quicker? You know, and anybody you ask, once they understand the theory behind that, the practical part might be a challenge, but the theory simply means if there is a tough time, you're going to deal with it better when you are happy than when you are unhappy. So the first thing is make the choice that you're going to be happy all the time, not some of the time. And people are going to accuse you, oh, you are a human being, you can't be happy all the time. But what's wrong about setting that goal?
Sure.
Okay, so that's number one, is the choice. The number two is gratitude, and it's expressing gratitude all the time, not some of the time. You know, life is supposed to be a complete package. If you only are expressing gratitude during good time, then you are going to be down during the bad time. Then
Sure.
the third thing is the volunteer I talk about. You know, I know that we are so busy. All of us are busy. But each and every one of us have 168 hours in a week. And so when you look at that, all I'm asking people is, can you take 1 hour or two out of those 168 and be of service to somebody else? And you don't have to go officially volunteer for a nonprofit. It's just being conscious and say, you know what, I'm going to be of service for 1 hour or 2 hours a week, no matter how you do that. And then you start to become second nature to that.
But that, you know, that idea of helping people or volunteering, it might even be as little as helping your neighbor, just asking your neighbor if they need something from you, or like helping, you know, checking in on someone to see if they can, if you can get their groceries for them or something. It probably doesn't have to be formal, right?
No, it does not at all. And especially during this COVID time, when you're talking about shelter at home, There are a lot of senior citizens that are so scared. Their kids cannot even go to visit them because they don't know who is carrying anything. What if a complete stranger was to call a retirement home and say, hey, I've got about an hour or two, and do you mind if I call some of your patients and just to check on them and just to say hello and maybe read a book to them, or maybe they read a book to me and I just listen to their book or have a conversation. It doesn't have to be formal. It's the brain starts to register you when you get to that frame of mind. Now, another thing that I share, I think I shared this on my TEDx talk, is what I call the 24-hour promise. And on the surface, it seems very easy, but for people, it can be challenging. And that means you wake up in the morning, before your feet gets to the ground, you promise yourself that you're going to be happy for 24 hours. That's it. This is not like a New Year resolution that you're going to change the world, this coming year. It's just that you're going to be happy for 24 hours. Now, here is what happened. When you make that promise, sometimes the law of the universe want to test you, okay? That's when all kind of crap start to get in your way. And one of the things that I teach people is you have to have self-compassion, okay? In other words, if you promise yourself you're going to be happy for 24 hours and 2 or 3 hours into it, somebody throw you off track, don't get so upset that you discount the first 3 hours that you did well. You need to give yourself credit for doing well for 3 hours, and you need to be kind to yourself to say, okay, I'm human. I couldn't do it for 24 hours, but guess what? I did it for 3 hours. So now let me do it for another 24 hours moving from here. And then before you get to the point where you start doing full 24 hours, and then you start to reprogram your brain, you start to rewire your brain, and the brain starts to be in cooperation with you. And over time, you start getting better at it.
And Edwin, you have taught us so much, and even, we could go on and on, but we can take these things that you've taught us, just these small things of volunteering, of gratitude and attitude, all of this to make a big change. And we are getting out of time, but thank you so much, Edwin.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. So we've been talking with Edwin Edebiri about happiness is the best medicine. And thank you for joining us today. This is my last episode of Much More on Medicine. Please watch my new show, The Wide World of Esports, which will debut on July 15th at 3 p.m. Hawaii time. I'll be talking with Major General Frank Muth about how the military uses esports for recruiting. Thank you for watching today and wishing you much happiness.
Thanks.